Hilchos Sukkah and Lulav, Reish Pei Aleph. Yom HaMelech B'Yom HaShvi B'Shachas. The person finished eating on Sukkah the last day in the morning. Lo yatis Sukkah, so you should not take apart the Sukkah. Go to the Peirush, because they used to eat 2 meals a day. One in the morning, one in the evening. So you ate the evening meal, and the next evening meal is going to be Shmini Atzeres. So if you finish his meal in the morning, and he won't eat until on Sukkot, and therefore he should not take it apart. Rae Gann explains that he's obligated, because if he wants to sleep there, he has to sleep in it. It could be he'll get guests and he'll need to have them, therefore he'll have to eat. But he can take out his effects or his chairs, tables, everything from Mincha Ma'alo, from the after Atzois, because he doesn't, he's not intending to use it. And if somebody comes, they'll put a chair back in. Mishnah site Sukkah 48a, a Sukkah of 7 days. How is it so? When he finishes eating, he shouldn't take it apart on the 7th day, but he can take out the vessels from it, because he needs them for the house to be able to be honor Shmini Atzeres. Rae explains that you can take out those vessels that you know that they're preparatory for next day. He makes puts them in the place where he's going to eat Shmini Atzeres. The Rambam didn't have to explain this, because it says Mincha Malov, and it's understood that that's why he's doing it. He has no other place to leave his vessels. Says they made a sukkah in a portion of the house, and the of Achon, he's going to have to eat in the place of the sukkah where he's ate in the Chag. His Peirush HaMeir, he opens up the ceiling, so there's a hole of 4 by 4, and therefore there the sukkah is possible. My Mishnah side sukkah. And he adds, therefore, when he has no place to eat on the 8th day, he opens it up on the 7th day, and he makes the sukkah possible. To tell you that there's no mitzvah to eat in the sukkah on the 8th day. And Rae Gann emphasizes he has to do an action that shows that he doesn't want to add. Like in Rashi, so here, it could be Hilchos Yad, that you should remember that it's possible. That you should remember it's possible, and he finished the mitzvah, and it's known that he'll eat in it after he made it possible, because he has no place else. This is what we do. The question is, Avia is possible by Gimel. Why does he need 4 by 4? The answer is, in order that you recognize it's possible, you need 4 by 4. It's considered a Mokem Choshev by Peirush HaMeir, and therefore he's not sitting it for the mitzvah. And he also alerts us that he could have said that the intent of the Rambam is like in Halacha that the mitzvah was completed and the days of Chol HaMoed go, and he's not embarrassing the festival. And he concludes, it would seem certainly that you have to do it, so you shouldn't be you shouldn't transgress on sitting in a sukkah after sukkah is to be Baal Toisa. So more questions. If you made a mitzvah not in its time, and he doesn't have intent, the same mitzvah, you're not you don't transgress Baal Toisa, which means to add days to sukkahs. Why do you have to make it possible? It should be enough that you should have intent not to keep the mitzvah. Because of this question, he cites that there are those who explain the intent of the Gemara is because Yontif, the last day of Yontif, shouldn't make the last day lesser so, and he'll say it's still Chol HaMoed. Therefore, the Gemara says if he doesn't have where to put away his vessels, and he has to eat there, what should he do? So that people shouldn't say he's eating there because of Chol HaMoed. Therefore, he says you open up 4 by 4, and that way you know that Chol HaMoed has passed. The questions how, but I think it's after Chol HaMoed, you're davening on Yom Tov, you're making Kiddush on the Kois, and he explains That's why the Rambam left out the language of the Gemara, because of the glory of the last day, because nobody will think that it's still Chol Moed. The reason is to let us know that the mitzvah has ended and he's not transgressing, adding to the days of Sukkot, which you're not allowed to do. And if he has to eat in the rest of the seventh day, whatever he eats, he has to eat in the Sukkah. Because it says Sukkah stage Shivas Yom, and the mitzvahs they all 7 days, and because the Rae is masig, so the Maggid Mishnah explains that even though he took out the vessels, he's still obligated, and he says, I'm mentioning it only because the Rae is masig. Amaro. So we have here Sukkah's Rae. Amaro, the Rae says, any of them who's there? I don't know what the Rambam says in Motzel Lisoid. Maybe it means Shemzor Lisoid v'Sukkah b'Shah Yomim. If he has to eat in the Sukkah the other days. The Rav Mishnah explains that the intent of the Rambam is that days after the 8th day. And so Livroid's Bo, he doesn't have to make a hole in it to make it possible. Only the 8th day, Shlit Odom Bo, that a person shouldn't make a mistake in that day. They shouldn't think he's doing a l'shem mitzvah. Even though this would not seem to be the translation of it. The logic dictates that this is the halacha that you have to show. So Lecha Mishnah says this is the intent of the Rae, but if that's the case, how does he explain the Rambam's language? If he has to eat in the Sukkah because it's all 7 days. This doesn't have anything to do with the intent of the Rambam. The Rambam wouldn't say tzorach to eat. He can eat. It maybe would mean that if he'll have to eat on the 8th day and further, then he can eat in it because the mitzvah of Sukkah is only 7 days, and everybody knows that the mitzvah is ended. But since it says he has to eat, you can't explain it like the Raavad, the Loshen Rambam. Why does the Raavad say that the Loshen doesn't show this? Because you can't explain it otherwise. If a Lecha Mishnah wants to say that the intent of the Raavad is he'll have to eat on the 7th day after Mincha, he has to eat in a Sukkah Kshero. Therefore, you should not minimize it by making a hole of 4 till right before nightfall, like the understanding of the Maggid Mishnah, the Rambam, where he says that he opens it for Mincha and further. That's when he knows for sure he won't have to eat the rest of the day. But if he wants to eat there during the day, he has to have a Sukkah that you can sit in it for all 7. And this is not a Sukkah because it's not kosher anymore. And therefore, you can't make it. You can't make that daled al daled, and it's difficult to say that this is in his language what he means sorach. He needs to eat. That the intent means that you need to have a sukkah that is worthy of eating in it, and therefore the Raavad says that the language would not seem to concur with what he's trying to say. That if we'll need to eat, the Mishnah says, according what the Raavad said, explain the Rambam, if he'll have to eat there on other days. We don't have a text other days with a base, but chof, a kishar with a chof, it means like the other days of Sukkot. If you need to eat there, like the other days of Sukkot, because there's no more days coming up. The Mishnah cites the Migdal Ois, brings the Sukkot arrive in the Giersa with a base or a chof, if one will need to eat just like other days. If he'll have to eat on the 7th day, like on the other days after Mincha, he does not have to make it opening there, even though on the 8th day he'll be eating there. Still, the question is, it's difficult to place this in the words of the Rambam, what the Raavad explained, because the Rambam should have said that he should not make a hole in the roof because he still has to eat there. Furthermore, he questions the language of the Ravid is he doesn't have to make a hole only on the 8th day. It's very difficult to say because we're talking about Eretz Yisrael. On the 8th day, it's Yom Tov. You can't take apart part of a building. It's one of the malachas that's forbidden. With difficulty, he explains the intent of the Ravid. When he says the 8th day, it means near Ben Hashmoshes. Why the Rambam said Ein Tzorach? It could be that the Ravid earned in the understanding of the Rambam that he comes to reject the idea that you shouldn't think that he has to, from Mincha and further, forbid himself to eat till night, because he has no sukkah. But he doesn't have to make the hole at the time of Mincha. He can eat literally until nightfall, and on the 8th day, means very close to the 8th day, when it's still the 7th day, that's when he has to open it up. Magen Mishnah explains the intent of the Rambam, that even though he takes out the vessels from Mincha and further, or he makes the Sukkah postal, but that's for sure, if he has to eat the rest of the day after Mincha, he needs to have a Sukkah. And that's what the Rambam is emphasizing here, that don't think because you no longer have a Sukkah, you can eat without having a Sukkah.